Céad míle fáilte ó Condawio, agus lá le Pádraig, Sonaglich. Mayo County Council and Westport Town Hall Theatre wish you a virtual happy St. Patrick's Day. But of course we do wish someday soon that we'll be able to welcome you back in person to County Mayo. We come to you live from the edge of Clew Bay under the shadow of Croagh Patrick, Ireland's holy mountain. And that's of course where St. Patrick spent 40 days and 40 nights in 441 AD. Today we're delighted to bring you a live theatre performance telling the story of Patrick. This production was first staged here at Westport Town Hall in July 2016. So today, as we celebrate our national holiday, we invite you to sit back and enjoy some real Irish music, song and dance.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Patrick.
Every year on March the 17th, millions of people all over the world celebrate St. Patrick's Day. There's parades, floats, marching bands, dancers, tractors, costumes, shillelaghs, green hats, green hair, green beards, green beer. In Chicago, the river is dyed green, using 100 pounds of green dye. There's leprechauns and amadons reinventing and reimagining Irish culture through all kinds of angles, from Seamus Heaney to Bono to bacon and cabbage. But what do we actually know about Patrick, St. Patrick, Bishop of Ireland, Apostle of Ireland, Paddy? Well, first of all, he wasn't Patrick at all. It's reported in a number of folk sources that his given name was Maewyn Succat. Thankfully, though, either himself or someone else had the foresight to change that at some point, so that we don't have to celebrate St. Succat's Day every year. A whole plethora of perceptions of Patrick have been moulded by religious, political, intellectual, and social circumstances over the past few centuries until we arrive at the figure of Patrick as the archetypal Irish man, the bearded bishop, wearing a mitre and carrying a staff. And what's interesting about this image is that no one really knows what he looked like. No visual records of St. Patrick appear until the 13th century. That's 800 years after he died. As for St. Patrick's crozier, the one that he supposedly banished the snakes with, well, it was venerated for centuries in Dublin's Christ Church Cathedral, only to be publicly burned shortly after the English reconquest in 1538 under the orders of the then Archbishop George Browne, as it was considered a superstitious relic. Now, thankfully, George had all the staff's golden ornaments and gems removed first. Then there's the mitre, the pointed hat split in half that bishops and popes wear. This is what we've come to associate with the saint. But mitres didn't appear until the 7th century, and that's nearly 200 years after he died. So where does that leave us then? Can there be any agreement on the facts of Patrick's life? All the scholars of St. Patrick are in agreement that 2 of his writings still remain. They are his Confessio and Epistola, or letter to Coroticus, both written in Latin. So what do we learn from Patrick's Confessio more than 1,600 years after he wrote it? Well, let's start with his birth. He was definitely born, but where? Patrick mentioned 5 places in his 2 surviving written works: Ireland, Britain, Gaul, or France, Banavum Tabernae, and the wood of Folcluth near the Western Sea. We believe that he was born in Banavum Tabernae in 385 AD, which might have been on the south coast of Britain, but could also be on the south coast of Scotland, or indeed on the north coast of France. So that means that the birthplace of St. Patrick is definitely narrowed down to somewhere in Scotland, England, Wales, or maybe France. Maybe in another 1,600 years, we'll have it nailed down for sure. Patrick's writings show that he came from what amounted to a clerical dynasty. His father, Calpurnius, was a deacon, and his grandfather, Potitus, was a priest. His mother's name was Conchessa. Patrick would have enjoyed a nice, handy life as the son of a deacon, and may even have been partying on a regular basis, given that the custom at that time was for baptism to take place later in life, when all previous sins could be forgiven. We do know, however, that one day when Patrick was in his mid-teens, Irish pirates came calling. As I mentioned earlier, Folcleth was the name of an ancient forest in Ireland, and St. Patrick refers to Folcleth in the autobiographical portion of his Confessio text, where he says, "I heard the voices of those Irish who live near the wood of Folcleth near the western sea." Because of this, many modern scholars now believe that Folcleth was the site of his captivity, rather than the traditional site of Slieve Mish in County Antrim. Folcleth's location is not known with certainty, but Patrick's 7th century biographer, Ciara-May, indicated that Folcleth was actually in County Mayo, near the modern village of Killala. And of course, since this show is from Mayo, that would have to be true. St. Patrick spent 6 years in the wood of Folcleth as a young man, separated from his loved ones, surrounded by his Gaelic masters, the animals he had to tend, and the great ocean that keeps us all waterbound.
I'm gone, I won't be back. Don't believe me, count my tracks. River is long and the river is wide. Meet you boys on the other side. Say my name and
When Patrick arrived in Ireland, he described himself in his confessio as a man of little or no faith, who believed he had wasted his youth. He said,
"But this I know for certain, that before I was brought low, I was like a stone lying deep in the mud. Then he who is powerful came and in his mercy pulled me out and lifted me up and placed me on the very top of the wall."
Then one night, he had a dream that God told him it was time to escape and return to his family.
"It was there one night in my sleep that I heard a voice saying to me, 'You have fasted well. Very soon you will return to your native country.' Again, after a short while, I heard someone saying to me, 'Look, your ship is ready.'"
After his escape, St. Patrick returned home, now in his early 20s, and continued to study Christianity both in Britain and in Gaul, present-day France. Patrick recounts in his confessio that he had a vision a few years after returning home, wherein he heard the voices of the Irish people calling him back to the wood of Folcluth near the Western Sea. Acting on this vision, Patrick returned to Ireland as a Christian missionary and set about converting the Gaelic people to Christianity. The pre-Christian Celtic world is very well represented in this part of Mayo, and Patrick had a good notion that if he wanted to convert Ireland to Christianity, he'd have to sort out the Mayo people first. Why is that? Well, let's look at Cruchonagla, or Croagh Patrick. The Reek, as it's known locally, has been a sacred mountain for thousands of years. On the southern pilgrimage path to the mountain sits a very unusual stone, known as St. Patrick's Chair or the Bohe Stone. It is covered in Gaelic cup and ring marks that were cut into it by someone 2,000 years before Patrick's arrival. Westport antiquarian Jerry Bracken discovered in 1981 that on 2 days every year, the setting sun, when viewed from this stone, touches the summit of Crowpatrick and then rolls down the northern slope, following the angle of the mountainside exactly. The phenomenon takes approximately 20 minutes. And the dates of this rolling sun are April the 18th and August 24th. And then there's the Kildangan standing stones alongside the coast road to the Reek. These stones also align with the sun on Crowpatrick during the winter solstice on the 21st of December. On the summit, a hilltop fort was discovered in 1994, dating from 500 BC. That's 1,000 years before Patrick. So clearly, therefore, Crowpatrick and the surrounding area are one huge site. And this makes Crowpatrick a hugely important ritual site and one that would have to be conquered for the new Christian faith to take hold. But there was a problem. Snakes. Gee, you couldn't go out the door without getting harassed by snakes. According to Irish lore, St. Patrick scattered the serpents and drove them into the sea. Now this, of course, is despite the fact that most naturalists tell us that snakes were never part of the Irish fauna. Ireland does have 2 native reptiles which belong to the serpent family: the common lizard and the slow or blind worm, a legless snake-like serpent that can measure anything up to maybe 2 or even 3 inches in length. So, the banishing of the snakes is clearly a legend. But legends often have reference to actual events. And in this case, the snakes can be taken to represent pre-Christian Celtic beliefs and Patrick's battle with those beliefs before eventually banishing them and replacing them with Christianity. Ultimately, Patrick travelled the country, preaching Christianity and battling with whatever local Celtic god, custom or feast that he encountered, until he eventually convinced them all to follow the tune that he was playing. The Celtic feast of Baltana, Feast of the Fires, was a major festival with an agricultural significance, as it marked the end of the unfarmable winter in the Northern Hemisphere and symbolised the start of the summer. Traditionally, a fire would be lit by Ireland's High King on the top of the hill of Tara, and his fire would then be used as a sign to light all other fires across the country. So when St. Patrick lit a fire on the nearby hill of Slane, in advance of High King Leary, he was deliberately inviting attention from the king and his druids. He knew well what he was at, but he was running the risk of losing his head. Warriors and druid elders were sent by King Leary to investigate, and they reported back that Patrick's fire had magical powers because they couldn't seem to put it out. They warned that if the king did not extinguish Patrick's fire, it could burn forever. King Leary wasn't able to extinguish the saint's fire, and so he accepted that Patrick's magic was stronger than his. Although he did not choose to convert to Christianity himself, the king endorsed Patrick's mission to convert the Irish. Legend also has it that while trying to explain the concepts of Christianity, the king and his druids admitted they found it hard to understand the doctrine of the Holy Trinity. St. Patrick thought for a moment, and then stooped down, plucked a shamrock and held it up before them, and used the example of the three-leaved plant as a living example of the three-in-one. He compared it to the concept of the Holy Trinity of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Lo and behold, the number 3 also happened to hold great significance in Celtic mythology, which can be seen in many examples, including the triple aspect of their ancient gods and goddesses, and the ancient triple spiral symbol also known as the triskel. So Patrick used his vast personal knowledge of the Irish people, combined with his simple and beautiful explanations, to help him succeed in converting them, where many others had failed before him. And of course, since then, the shamrock has gone on to become famous throughout the world as a symbol of Irish heritage. The next dance symbolises the links between all of these things, starting with Ciara-May dancing the beautiful set dance, King of the Fairies, and ending with a trinity of dancers in a reel. Upon his arrival in Ireland, Patrick was initially met with resistance, but managed to spread Christian teachings far and wide, along with other missionaries, through preaching, writing, and performing countless baptisms. Some say there may even have been two Patricks teaching in Ireland, giving the amount of missionary work that was being done. Either way, the spiritual practices already in place, along with the nature-oriented pre-Christian rituals, were also incorporated into the new church practices. Patrick is also renowned for coming up with the Celtic cross, which combined a native sun-worshipping ideology with that of the Christian cross. Throughout his missionary work, Patrick supported church officials, created councils, founded monasteries, and organised Ireland into dioceses. And as a result of Patrick's extensive missionary travels around Ireland over the course of nearly 40 years, there are many locations endeared to the heart of the Irish people because of their intimate memories of St. Patrick, including Slieve Mish in County Antrim, Slane in County Meath, Saul in County Down, the Rock of Cashel, County Tipperary, St. Patrick's Cathedral in Armagh, Loch Derg in County Donegal, Downpatrick in County Down, and of course, our very own Patrick, because this show is really about Mayo. Patrick, or the Reek as it's known locally, is our very own 2,507 feet, 764 metre high mountain, 3 miles out the road in Murrisk, where the saint withdrew from the world for 40 days and nights in the Lent of 441 AD. But of course, the tradition of pilgrimage to this holy mountain actually stretches back over 5,000 years from the Stone Age to the present day without interruption. Since time immemorial, people are thought to have gathered here to celebrate the beginning of harvest season, and Patrick understood that well. In military terms, this was the hill that he needed to take in order to win the battle between Celtic beliefs and Christianity. So is pilgrimage to Croagh Patrick still popular? Well, every year the Reek as we know it attracts over 100,000 pilgrims. On Reek Sunday, the last Sunday in July, over 25,000 pilgrims visit the Reek. Individuals and groups come from all over the world and include pilgrims, hill climbers, historians, archaeologists, and nature lovers. And as we all know, the beauty of Ireland is on its full display in all of these places, as well, of course, as the less famous places that we see every day. The other great beauty of Ireland can be found in its people and our approach to life, a unique approach built on both the teachings of St. Patrick and our ancient Celtic ancestors. So let's celebrate our great island and its great people, particularly here in the west of Ireland, with the beautiful Song for Ireland, written by Phil Cultla.
Walking all the day, near tall towers where falcons build their nests, silver wings they fly, they know the call of freedom in their breast, saw black head against the sky, where twisted rocks run down to the sea, living on your western shore, saw summer sunsets, asked for more. I stood stood by your Atlantic sea, and I sang its song for Ireland, drinking all the day in no pubs where fiddlers love to play. Someone touched the bow, he played a reel that seemed so grand and gay. Stood on Dingle Beach and cast in wild foam, we found Atlantic bass, living on your western shore. Saw summer sunsets, asked for more. I stood by your Atlantic sea, and I sang a song for Ireland, dreaming in the night. I saw a land where no man had to fight. Waking in your dawn, I saw you crying in the morning light, lying where the falcons fly. They twist and turn all in your air blue sky, living on your western shore. Saw summer sunsets, asked for more. I stood by your Atlantic sea, and I sang a song for Ireland.
So many of the world's religions spring from our fears and concerns about that other essential part of life, and that is death. And of course, St. Patrick definitely died. But when? The death of St. Patrick is recorded in the annals of the Four Masters in the year 493, which would have made him 122 years old. But many historians now believe he actually died in the year 461 at 76 years of age. According to the same annals, after Patrick's death, there was a fight over the actual ownership of his sacred corpse, known as the Battle for the Body of St. Patrick, Ca Corp Nif Patrick. In the legend, the O'Neill and the O'Rahilly clans want to bring Patrick's body to Armagh, while the people of Ullad want to keep it in their own territory, east of the River Bann. God intervenes, halting the progress of the corpse movers by swelling the waters of a river and blocking their path. Peace terms were reached, and then, as if by a miracle, both parties thought that they had possession of the body and continue on their way. Isn't it tempting to see a kind of mythic symmetry here with more contemporary events in Ireland? For example, the Good Friday or Belfast Agreement and the ensuing pageantry and politics which have thankfully contributed to a more peaceful Ireland might find no better metaphor than the battle for the body of St. Patrick. For St. Patrick is an integral part of both Catholic and Protestant traditions in Ireland, and each tradition has used the saint to support their claim to represent the spirit of the island. Tradition tells us that St. Patrick is buried in the Protestant Down Cathedral in County Down, along with two other famous Irish saints, St. Bridget and St. Columkill, as immortalised in the couplet, in Down 3 saints one grave do fill, Patrick, Bridget and Columkill. We're going to celebrate Patrick's life, his death and his uniting spirit that has lived on for over 1,600 years through the great American gospel song, Ain't No Grave Gonna Hold My Body Down, written by Claude Eli.
There ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. There ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. I hear the trumpet sound. Won't get up off the ground. Well, there ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. Well, look down the river, Gabriel, put your feet on the land and see. Blow that trumpet till you hear from me. Well, there ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. There ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. I hear the trumpet sound. Gonna get up off the ground. Well, there ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. When I go down to the river, what do you think I see? See a band of angels and they're coming after me. Well, there ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. There ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. I hear that trumpet sound. Gonna get up off the ground. Ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. I go down the river John, put my knees down on the sand. Gonna holler high Hosanna till I make that promised land. Well, there ain't no grave hold my body down. There ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. I hear that trumpet sound. Gonna get up off the ground. There ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. Can meet me, Jesus, meet me in the middle of the air. And if my wings should fail me, I won't need no other fare. Well, there ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. There ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. I hear that trumpet sound. Gonna get up off the ground. Ain't no grave gonna hold my body down.
Patrick has left us with a country where we see our history around us every day. We see the ring forts of our ancestors in the fields and farms we live in and we drive by. We can see the churches and cathedrals that Patrick founded and built. St. Patrick is celebrated throughout the world, with parades every year in virtually every single town and village in Ireland, every state in America, 16 countries in Europe, all the largest cities in the UK and Canada, all the main cities in Australia, in New Zealand, and untold other places, from the Caribbean to the Middle East. And one of the main reasons that all of these celebrations take place around the world is down to the vast Irish diaspora spread globally. Since 1700, between 9 and 10 million people born in Ireland have emigrated. That's more than the population of Ireland at its historical peak in the 1840s, when it was 8.5 million. The poorest of those people went to Great Britain, and those that could afford it, almost 5 million, went to the United States. In 1890, 40% of Irish-born people were living abroad. By the 21st century, an estimated 80 million people worldwide claimed some Irish descent, and that includes more than 40 million Americans who claim Irish as their primary ethnicity. Now that's a lot of Patricks. And all of these people in so many different countries around the world have helped to build the idea that being Irish is recognized as a good thing around the world. They bring our rich heritage and unrivaled and evolving culture with them, along with a fantastic collective sense of humor that helps unite people everywhere. St. Patrick would be rightly proud. So let's honor all of these people with a song called Isle of Hope that describes the story of the first person to be processed at Ellis Island Immigrant Inspection Station in New York Bay. And that person was a young girl of 15 years of age called Annie Moore from County Cork, and the year was 1892.
On the first day of January 1892, they opened Ellis Island and they let the people through. And the first to cross the threshold of that isle of hope and tears was Annie Moore from Ireland, who was all of 15 years. Isle of hope, Isle of tears, Isle of freedom, Isle of fears, but it's not the isle you've left behind. That Isle of hunger, Isle of pain, Isle you'll never see again. But the Isle of hope is always on your mind. In a little bag she carried
One of the most important lessons that we can take from St. Patrick is how to unite people. He converted all of Ireland to Christianity, and we mostly follow the Catholic faith. But Patrick himself is buried in the Church of Ireland, Down Cathedral in County Down, and is celebrated by millions of people of many different belief systems around the world every year. In the 4th verse of his incantation, St. Patrick's breastplate, he says, "I arise today through the strength of heaven, the light of the sun, the radiance of the moon." We must now arise and finish our story. We'd like to do that by remembering the last words of another great Irishman, Seamus Heaney, spoken to his family. He said in Latin, "Noli timere," which means, "Don't be afraid." So, ladies and gentlemen, in parting, we would say to you all, don't be afraid, for the purpose of life is to be happy. We'd like to unite you all in one final dance. And we ask you, wherever you are, to arise. Don't be afraid. Dance together and be as happy as you can be.